passive income seems to be a bit of a buzzword.
It's the silver bullet, right? It's the financial Ozempic, you could say.
What is passive income? How would one define that?
I would define it as income that you receive that you don't have to continually put effort towards, like buying treasuries, earning 4% on your money, and you don't do anything and you just get paid. It's very hard to find, especially early on. We have to be willing to create active income, sweaty income, ugly income, by whatever means necessary. And the more we do that, the longer we do that, the more realistic, true passive income actually is. You just can't ignore AI. Like whatever you're doing, AI has to be part of it.
The best entrepreneur that can leverage those agents could be better. It could be 1,000 times better than someone who doesn't have the grit, doesn't have the skill, doesn't have the ambition.
Like a lot of people are going to start earning $1 million a month. And a lot of people are going to say, hey, I can't even get a job for $15 an hour. There's going to be this kind of interesting wedge. We used to judge people on IQ, and now IQ is the big leveler. And now going forward for the next 10 years, we're going to look at, are you a high agency person or a low agency person? Do you have the ability to get things done and coordinate agents? Do you have the ability to start businesses or give orders to digital armies? And essentially these high agency people are going to thrive in this new world because they have this other thing that's been bubbling under the surface.
Okay, so I have $1,000. So I would take the $1,000, put it in my pocket, do nothing with it, and I would watch YouTube videos on AI integration into small businesses, and then I would go to small businesses, and once I had a specific integration that I would do, which I would probably bet would be around likely email list activation, because that's typically like fastest, easiest money that most business owners have is their contact list. So they've got, they've been in business 10 years, they've got, 8,000 customers they've sold over that whole time period, and maybe a list of, call it 20,000 leads that they've had. They never email them ever. If they do, it's just like, here's our random discount that we send once a quarter for Christmas or whatever. And I would say, hey, I will email those people and I will get everything approved by you, and don't pay me anything, just pay me a percentage of the sales that we generate afterwards. How's that sound? And that offer tends to do well, and I know that because I've done it.
There's 400 million small businesses on the planet. They've surveyed some of these business owners, and 77% of them have admitted that AI would be transformational to their business. Right? They need AI. It's not a fad. It's not going away. 5% of them have claimed they're using AI in a meaningful way, right? And define that as you will. So basically, we have this knowledge gap. Right? We know it's like a business cognitive dissonance, if you will. We know we need to do something and we're not doing it. Doesn't matter how easy the tools are. Doesn't matter how much you can create a new website or an app with one prompt. They need someone to do it, right? I know how to vacuum my floor. I know how to clean my house. I still would rather just pay someone to do it. Okay. And so with a fifth of the money, call it $100, I would start learning some vibe coding tools. Replit, Lindy, there's a ton of them out there.
What is vibe coding for anyone that doesn't?
Vibe coding is the non-technical person, the non-coder such as myself, using their natural language to just say, hey, build me an app that manages customers for dog trainers. You'll have an app, right? Is it fully functional? Is it workable yet? Not quite, but 10 to 20 more prompts and you're good to go. And then I would take the rest of the money and I would put it into ads, right? Preferably meta ads, Facebook ads. And I would target local businesses. Even though this is a global thing, if I live in Omaha, Nebraska, I could sell this to people in Tokyo. Doesn't matter. I'm going to put radius around Omaha and my ads are going to say, I'm Chris and I can help put AI into your business. You just can't ignore AI. Like whatever you're doing, AI has to be part of it. So I like the framework of implementing new AI tools into old businesses. And I like the framework that 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every single day. And that will be the case for the next 5 to 10 years.
What's the opportunity there?
To either buy the businesses or to implement AI into the businesses. Those are the two biggest opportunities I see, those two.
Get them to give you the business and you run it better in a more digital way.
Yeah.
And you pay them off for that business when you've made profit from it. If you don't make the profit, they get their business back.
Yes.
Now with AI, we're at the early stage of generating AI, but we're not yet into the stage of creating everything that runs on AI. So think about a power station versus a toaster. So the power station's been invented, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of toasters that can be invented. Toasters, kettles, vacuum cleaners, things that run on electricity. So AI is like electricity, but we haven't built all the businesses that are going to plug in and are going to be great opportunities. And that's going to be over the next 10 to 15 years. Every single industry, you can't name an industry that's not going to be impacted by this. Every industry is going to have applications that run on AI.
I think you need to fall in love with business, with commerce. And if you can love entrepreneurship, turning $1 into $2, and that, like, if you could focus on that being your passion, then anything that falls underneath that, you should win at, right? But I like to say, follow the profit, Profit, until you can afford to follow your passion, right? Because if we're trying to follow our passion from day one, we're probably not ever going to get there, because the statistical likelihood that what we love and what makes us money overlaps in the beginning is almost zero. So ignore passion for a time, try to build your passion around commerce, and then start anything. And then once you're able to have more passive income, then start things that you're passionate about. Everyone is a hard worker. Everyone on this planet has the same DNA that enables them to work hard. But the problem is what they're working on probably gives them no energy, right? They're probably not passionate about it. So what am I passionate about? Well, we've got to test everything. We have to try new things. We have to take that curious question and turn it into a business. Maybe that's fun. Maybe it's not, right? We need more surface area for finding what our passions actually are. Because we might think that like I love woodworking, right? I don't have to build a business around that because I love business. Right? So I can build a business around anything. But if I got super hung up on like, I cannot make a profit from this woodworking business, then I would fail at entrepreneurship if I started there, right? Whereas if I approach this from the angle of, all right, I like woodworking. What else do I like?
And virtually every extremely rich person who's self-made, as my asterisk, generally has gigantic active income and only begins to look at passive when they have so much money from reinvesting in their higher return things, which is what got them this very large active income, that they're like, where else should I put it? And then at that point, it's really a question of diversification, which is like, how much more do I not want to double down on the main thing? A very simple investment, a lot of times can get you ideally leverage on your time. And so I would rather think for the person who's starting out, not like, how do I make this passive? I'd rather say, how do I get more leverage on my active? And so like I could start by shoveling snow in the beginning. And then once I save up enough of my shekels, then I'll buy a snow blower. And all of a sudden I can go from doing, 1 driveway an hour to doing 3 driveways an hour. And then boom, I tripled my income. Now for that 1 week that my cash flow is down because I had to buy the equipment, I'll have made less money, but then I'll very quickly recoup it. Now to the same degree, that's in a capital expense from an equipment perspective, but you can do the same thing from a skills perspective of, I give a classic example of a phlebotomist as somebody who draws blood. In the US, I think they make somewhere in the neighborhood of like $25 an hour, something like that. It doesn't take very long in order to become a phlebotomist, and it doesn't take a lot of money. And so, a couple weeks, you do the studies, you get your cert, and then all of a sudden you take minimum wage, and as long as you're not in San Francisco, you'll have doubled or tripled your earning capacity in just a very short period of time. And so that's a very good return on capital. And so that's where I think about the best investments for people who are starting out, who have, call it sub $10,000, sub maybe $25,000. It's like I put all my money into how I get more leverage on my active, which is either going to be more skills or more actual physical equipment in order to get returns on the skills I already have.